Yeah, I know, but I thought there's Wendy, there's 7. She just like appears, like, you know.
Wendy just appeared.
Wendy just appeared for us.
So did John.
Okay, so John's
It's
here.
like a parallel meeting. I had the other link. Sorry.
Okay. Hey,
Mr.
Christy.
Chair, we are live.
And Maureen's here too. Okay, great. All right. Awesome.
Oh,
Good, I got Judith on both screens. That's good. Okay. If anyone else comes on, just let me know so I can check them off. Right now I have Bert not here and Leslie not here right now. Is what my list shows. Okay, where's my thing here? So I'm going to call the meeting to order at whatever time it is, 6:02. So we're, meeting under the state guidelines as usual for our meeting. Using Zoom webinar, attendees must register to participate. And I just want to say that we're not doing the YouTube chat thing, right, Holly? Okay. So there's no public hearings in this meeting tonight, but if anyone has any other business or something, we can talk about that. Otherwise, we'll just stick with the 3 items for Derek, if that's okay with everybody. We're going to have a very big meeting on the 15th. There's going to be a lot of different stuff. So, we got plenty coming ahead. So, with that said, can I just have a roll call from everyone? I'll just start with Fritz, just to say you're here.
Present.
Judith. You're muted, Judith, sorry.
Zoom, too
There
many
you go.
Zooms. Here, yep, here.
Thank you, Judith. John Trudell.
Here.
Dave Iverson.
Here.
Christy Ferrantella.
Here.
Maureen Phillips.
Here.
Wendy Hudson.
Here.
There we go. And Jack.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jack. And Nat Lowell is here, I think. So thank you very much. And staff, Holly Backus, Billy Sad, and Derek Schuster from the state. And thank you all for coming. Thank you very much, Derek. We missed you. And
I've missed you too.
Thanks for coming back. I know you miss us. I know you do. You forget us. So we're still here.
I don't.
So thank you very much. So I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda as written.
So moved.
Okay.
All those in favor? We'll start with Fritz.
Aye.
Judith.
Aye.
John. Sorry, John. Can't see you on this side. Dave. Dave, you there? He has bad service, so he might zip back. There he is. Christy Ferrantella.
Aye.
Maureen.
Aye.
Wendy.
Aye.
Jack.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you.
Did you mean that I was aye?
Yeah, I heard you, Dave. Okay. So, all right. So the 3C programming documents, Derek, you want to help us out here and start us off with, I believe it's that the safety performance measures. Is that the first thing?
Yes, it's 2 items. So the first item is the MassDOT calendar year 21 safety performance measure targets. This body may recall about this time every year, the state sets safety performance measure targets as required by Federal Highway Administration, and each region within the Commonwealth needs to support either opt to support the state's safety targets or create their own. The regions all decide to go by what the state's targets are, historically speaking. And there's a supporting document to this on what the island's safety performance targets and rolling averages are for the three categories. But before I go to that, I'll stick to this first sheet that explains what the three safety performance measures and their targets are. So for the first is total fatalities. Basically, the items in gray are actual measured fatalities over a 5-year period. The data that is making up these charts is through 2018. Unfortunately, 2019. There's usually a 2-year lag, which is why there's actual versus projected. So for the safety targets for 2016 to 2020, we were anticipating a statewide fatality rate of 0.57 fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. And based on the trends, we're anticipating that for 2017 through 2021, that the safety target will be 0.55 fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, and a net number of 339 statewide, averaged across 5 years. So that is the first safety target, total fatality 5-year average for calendar year 21. Does anyone have any questions before I continue?
Anyone have any questions? I can't see anyone, so whatever anyone has.
Just a quick one, Mr. Chair,
Yep.
through you to Derek. Derek, do you contribute the drop, as modest as it may be, to maybe things like variables like vehicle safety? Is it seatbelts, airbags, and things like that? The technology that's coming out today.
Yeah, MassDOT Safety Division can speak more to the reasons, but off-cited reasons I've heard for changes in fatality rates boil down to the safety of vehicles, adoption of seatbelt laws, traffic safety improvements. One of the reasons FHWA requires this is to see if any of the safety investments that the Commonwealth is making with federal dollars are actually yielding improvements or declines in the rates of fatalities and injuries. So there are a number of contributing factors.
Thank you.
Yep. Another consideration just worth noting is that the actual number of vehicle miles traveled also we know correlates to economic activity. So like fewer people were driving cars during the Great Recession of 08-09. And although it's not reflected in this year's data, because these targets were set before the pandemic had really become underway, this is something a lot of the regions have asked us, is how will this year's traffic data impact our safety targets? Because these are based across a 5-year rolling average, it's nominal. There's not really any measurable or quantifiable effect or impact that we have data to support for developing these. I mentioned there's a 2-year lag. We have a feeling that based on some of the data we have seen where vehicle miles have gone down, but this past year, unfortunately, fatality rates spiked because people are driving faster with fewer people on the road, that there's going to be some sort of impact. But in terms of the calendar year 21 target that's been set, it's consistent with the trend that we've seen from years past. So that is the total fatalities performance measure. The next performance measure is total serious injuries. Looking at this bar graph, the top number on the bar is the actual number of injuries. These gray bars are for actual injuries measured across 5 years. We had last year projected a 5-year rolling average of 2,685 injuries for the 5 years spanning 2016 to 2020, and set an injury rate target of 4.35 serious injuries per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. And for 2021's 5-year range, we're anticipating that to decline to 4.23 rate, and a number of 2,580 statewide for our target.
Derek, could I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Yep, go ahead, Judith.
Do you break things down to show bicycle injuries as opposed to other kinds of injuries by any chance?
I do.
You
I do. That's the third performance measure.
Okay, I'm getting ahead, sorry.
No, it's okay. But unless there's other questions on that safety measure, this third safety performance measure is total combined non-motorized injuries and fatalities, which does include people on bikes and people on foot. So the 5-year average trend, we saw, had this little humpback in the years following the recession, as I'd noted. And in 2016 to 2020, the Commonwealth had set a 5-year rolling average target of 517 non-motorized injuries and fatalities combined, and we've set a lower target of 506 for the 5-year average through 2021.
Derek,
yes.
Derek, does that mean, when you say non-motorized, does that mean incidents where cars might hit a bike?
Yep.
And does that, what about mopeds or electric bikes or things like that?
So per the explanation on here, it's in addition to bicyclists and pedestrians, this category includes skaters and users of wheelchairs and other mobility devices. So I believe that mopeds or e-scooters fall under the other mobility devices category.
Thanks.
Yep. And there's also a little more context about some of the investments that the Commonwealth has made since the adoption and endorsement of the statewide bike plan, the statewide pedestrian plan, and the strategic highway safety plan, which we anticipate impacting this rate for years to come because of more investment statewide on dedicated infrastructure for pedestrians and people on bikes, that rate will continue to drop. That's the hope anyway. And for the island, we have this table that has the hard numbers, as well as the data through July 13th, 2020, when these were first developed. So this offers a little more context about total annual fatalities, 5-year averages, and what they look like specifically on the island. I'll zoom in a little more if that's helpful for people. Does anyone have any questions?
Anyone out there have anything, Derek, before we move to the next item? Or
Well, this requires an
vote.
action. Yeah.
Vote. Sorry, I forgot about that. Yes, of course.
Okay.
No, Derek, we appreciate this, and I know that this is like the state, and it's not broken down into every little detail, but this is important. I think John's question is pretty good. I didn't think about that, with the vehicles being safer, and also Judith's question too is more bike paths, more safety lanes, more shoulder widenings with the paint and this and that in different places, I would assume is reducing the number of injuries. I mean, I know that's kind of hard to figure out, but I'm assuming that there would be a difference, signage and crossings and that type of stuff. So anyway, so you need a vote on this. Is this an approval or endorsement or an acceptance, Derek?
So this would be a motion to endorse the statewide safety performance measure targets for calendar year 21.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Fritz, go ahead.
just a question. Derek, can you just go back to that last screen?
Yes.
So I look across this and somehow I don't believe these numbers. Maybe I'm interpreting them wrong. So if you're talking about serious injuries,
Looking here.
non-motorist, right?
Mhm.
So we're talking bicycles, pedestrian, that type of thing. And you go across and you see 2018, 1, 2019, 2. I gotta believe there have been more serious non-motorist injuries than that.
So this is just on Nantucket. This isn't statewide.
There gotta be more than that. The
So
number of moped injuries that we have every year has got to be, I don't know whether it's in the hundreds, but it's got to be in multiples of tens. The hospital would know that.
So I believe these are based off of how Federal Highway Administration and ITE define serious, incapacitating, and different classifications of injuries. I believe for this exercise, serious injuries are ones that are incapacitating, ones that left someone in a wheelchair, paralyzed, or unable to perform, the previous functions that they may have been when they were walking or biking.
So in other words, Derek, there are a lot of things that don't make it to this sheet. I mean, what triggers this, statistic, like what Fritz is talking about? There is a lot of accidents that happen that may not make it here, because we definitely have quite a bit of accidents in the summertime.
Right.
And we got electric bikes now too, so it's all kind of the same.
Right. So there's a lot of crashes that when they happen with like someone who's riding a bike and gets hit by a car, oftentimes if someone's injured from being hit by a car but doesn't report it to the police or doesn't get hospitalized, and there's thus no record of it, like a police or injury record of it, that's not reported here. And then if it is something that sent someone to the hospital, but they were only in and out in the same day or in a couple days, and, the person didn't have a leg amputated or, God forbid, some other illness that left them incapacitated indefinitely, that would not be reflected here. If it's a minor injury, minor in the context of how serious an incapacitating injury can be. But this is something that when I worked in Southern New Hampshire and communities, sometimes had disagreements about what the reported data is versus what they know to be true in their communities. A lot of crashes, especially for non-motorists, aren't reported or aren't categorized accurately. And it really boils down to, I'm not saying Nantucket's good or bad at this, I don't know. But some communities, police departments don't necessarily collect this data in a way that when it comes time to report it to the state, they're able to accurately report whether these rates are accurate, that like whether they're the same as you believe them to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, gotcha.
Can I real quick, if you don't mind, through you?
Yeah. Okay.
So basically what you're saying is if the injury results in a lifetime disability, then it gets on the list. But if you fall and break your leg, then that's not going to make the list.
For the federal classification of serious injury here, that is correct.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Question, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
For Derek, through you. Derek, just for my own satisfaction for definition. If someone were to be walking or riding a bike and got hit by a car and the person on the bike or walking died, would that would obviously go under the annual fatality, for real fatalities, but would that be classified as a non-motorist or a motorist? Because if the result of the fatality happened from being hit by a car, would that be considered motorist, or would this fall under the non-motorist fatality and serious injury?
If the person that died in the fatality scenario you presented was walking or riding a bike, they would be a non-motorist fatality or serious injury, depending on the extent of what happened.
Okay.
If the person driving the car, the operator, was injured and or died, or a passenger in that vehicle was injured or died, then they would be classified in one of these two above
Right.
tables.
Okay, thank you.
Another question, Mr.
Go
Chair?
ahead, Fritz.
So just so the way these would be reported would be normally through the police department. Here in Nantucket, anybody who gets significantly injured would go to the hospital. Presumably, if there's significantly injured, the police would also be involved. But assume that just the person's, so is the reporting mechanism solely through the police department, or does the hospital report these?
I believe it's both, but I'm not certain. My recommendation, if you'd like more information on how this data is calculated, would be to contact MassDOT's safety division, because they're the ones who tabulate this. And I'd be happy to put you in touch, Fritz, or anyone else, if you'd like to get a better explanation about how this is calculated.
No, it's just really to understand what the significance of this data is. So I understand.
So
it needs to be reported and it needs to be approved or something else, but.
So I can explain the why we report this. The why we report this, obviously it's important to have a picture of, how safe our infrastructure is. But as you'll note down in the notes, there's a pool of funds, federal funds, through a program called Highway Safety Improvement Program, HSIP, that HSIP funds are able to be used on corridors or intersections or in locations where high fatal or incapacitating crashes happen. It's important for regions and communities and the states to report what the condition is of their streets and roads and shared use paths, and whether or not fatal or incapacitating crashes are happening, so that if they fall in a top 200 crash location, if we know that crashes happen there often, or that there is a rate of fatal crashes happening there, that HSIP funds could be made available or leveraged in order to rectify that wrong, to fix or improve what the infrastructure challenges that's allowing these crashes to happen.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Judith.
Derek, I understand that the feds require this kind of reporting that we're going through tonight, but does the state have more compiled data? Like if we said to you, we'd like to know about the less serious level injuries or incidents, or if we wanted to say compare ours to the vineyards or do more analysis about that, is that something the state helps with, or is that something we need to pursue with the local police and hospital?
It's something that the state has data on, and for HSIP eligibility, I know that the state publishes a map to see where HSIP clusters are. They're just called HSIP clusters because it's qualifying to leverage HSIP dollars in order to, establish a transportation project that makes it a safer piece of infrastructure. I don't know that offhand. I can follow up and send it to Billy or Andrew or Eleanor to disseminate to the board.
That would be really terrific if you would. I think
Yep.
we probably all of us be interested in knowing more about that, because I think we all have anecdotal reports, but to really have to know too what's actually reported or not would help us.
I'll look into that and make sure that I have something for them this week or next.
Thanks a lot.
Great, thank you, Derek. So does anyone else have anything? Otherwise, I'll accept a motion to accept this report.
Make a motion, I think, is it to endorse, Derek, yeah, a motion to
Endorse.
the plan or report.
Second.
All those in favor, we'll start with Fritz.
Aye.
Aye, I'm sorry, yeah, Fritz, and Judith,
Aye.
John Trudell,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Christie,
Aye.
Maureen,
Aye.
Wendy,
Aye.
Jack,
Aye.
chair votes aye. Unanimous, Holly, thank you. So the safe routes, school routes, Derek,
Yeah.
do you want to share the screen with that too?
So
Or is that
I don't have an update on the project itself. Just to note that this will be much shorter than the last item I anticipate. MassDOT does an exercise called Readiness Days every February, where we will meet with the transportation managers from each region to discuss the development of the next 5-year transportation improvement program. So the TIP, which is the document I have open right now, is Nantucket's 2021 to 2025 TIP. It's a federal requirement, and the Commonwealth programs funds or sets a regional target of funds for each region that they can use for transportation projects on island that you coordinate in development with your highway district, so District 5. And this is how much funding was available to program for projects on the island in the 21 to 25 TIP. However, Nantucket did not have any projects that were leveraging regional target funds to develop on its TIP. It did, however, have one project on its TIP that's statewide funded, and that is the Safe Routes to School improvements at Nantucket Middle and High School complex. That's still on the TIP and will be reflected as a statewide project for the FY 22 to 2026 Transportation Improvement Program. But for all the regions, after Readiness Days, we have a meeting with the voting bodies just to give an update on what projects, if any, were recommended to be programmed in your next TIP, your 2022 to 2026 TIP. And at the moment, Nantucket doesn't have any. It has the Safe Routes to School project, but no, Andrew participated during Readiness Days, and unfortunately, without a mic on island, it's been a challenge for you guys to develop a transportation project that we could add to the next TIP cycle. I just wanted to share this with you in case the Nantucket, in case the NPEDC would like to discuss projects at your next meeting or bring projects forth and have District 5 on the call to determine whether or not there might be any highway projects you can use your regional TIP target funds to program. I know there was talk of the roundabout that didn't happen a couple years ago. That's an example of one project that would have been using your regional TIP target dollars. But you know, there's a whole host of smaller projects that some regions do, like bike racks. There's a bike rack program that Cape Cod commission has used their tip to fund some regions if they have a gap in their regional tip target. So they might have like $1 million available in one of the larger regions. Will flex that money to their local RTA. If the RTA wants to accelerate purchasing new buses or has a capital cost, like I remember one of the bus depots hadn't been renovated in 30 or 40 years, so they used some of their tip target for that. There are ways that you can leverage your regional tip target with projects and come up with projects to program in 22 to 26. And I just wanted to explain that in case this body would like to come up with ideas, contact Andrew and the planning office to see if you'd like to work toward anything to leverage. It's about $500,000 a year for projects. So that's.
Mr. Chair, through you.
Go ahead, John.
So Derek, if I'm understanding this correctly, this year, particular year, we did not benefit from anything, which in essence, if you're looking at it, really cost us about $500,000. So by doing that, I wonder if we can't find a full-time person for $500,000, obviously that would pay a lot of years' salary there just by losing 1 year. But is there a service that we can use to identify programs like the bike racks or accelerated bus purchases or even renovating terminals or things like that? Is there a consultant that we might be able to hire just to fill out our applications once we identify a program so that we can, for a fraction of the cost, have them fill out the applications, put it forward to represent the town, and at least get those programs so we don't lose another year?
So I know this came up several months back at one of the commission meetings. Before the island can hire a consultant to do transportation planning work, if they were to leverage the funding mechanism that paid for Mike, for example, that was the UPWP, which you may also recall, and it'll be time to develop your FY22 UPWP this spring. Sorry, Billy. The UPWP would require an amendment if you wanted to use any money this year to hire a consultant to perform that work. So that's part A. Part B is that these funds are not for someone's salary, they're for projects. So it's not, I just want to make it clear for anyone listening that, this isn't money to pay the next transportation manager. This is the project that the transportation manager for your region would work toward getting programmed and funds made available. And sometimes, if there's like a shared use path project that might take a couple years to build and cost $1 million, you can have one project that goes across multiple years in order to pay for it. Martha's Vineyard, which is similar to you in that they are a smaller region and don't always have enough tip target funds at the regional level to fund one of their projects. They're in the midst of advertising a $3.5 million project using all of their tip target for 2 years and statewide tip funds to supplement the rest of it along Beach Road and Tisbury, I believe is where that project is. So there are options. It's just a challenge, we know, because projects cost more to do on the island, and it's that much harder to develop when you may not have a champion working to make them happen. But there are other regions across the Commonwealth that have program funds in this ballpark or less, maybe a little more, that might have programs that could interest the commission if you wish to proceed that route.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Fritz.
Derek, so if we don't have a consultant, but we would like to try to come up with or get more information about the types of things that we might be able to use this money for. Is there a way of getting information from the other regional planning authorities about what they do, or does that mean calling each one and asking?
Fritz, give me a region. Just name any region that comes to mind in the Commonwealth.
Plymouth.
Plymouth. So Plymouth is, I think that's Southeast Mass. It might be Serpide. I would look up Serpide, Southeast Regional Planning and Economic Development District. Serpide is the planning body for that region. If you go to the region's website, like I did here, and you look for transportation, all regions are required to have their transportation documents posted, just like Nantucket does on its website. That's how I found your tip. The transportation planning page has the tip, the bike ped master plan, long range plan. I would just look up any region in the Commonwealth for their documents. So if I wanted to see what has the Southeast region programmed in its tip, I would open it. For starters, it's taking a while to load because these are big documents. I think my bandwidth is going a little crazy right now with
Derek, you don't
with
have
the session.
to go-
But
I mean,
yeah, long story
Derek,
short, you can
questions.
look up any region of the Commonwealth's tip. It's publicly available. Cape Cod Commission is a good resource and neighbor. You can always contact Highway District 5, MassDOT District 5 to find out the projects they're working on across this region of the Commonwealth. I know that Pam Hasner and Barbara LaChance from that office are champions for trying to get something built on the island, and they understand how difficult it is, but they're available.
Thank you.
Another question, Mr. Chair, to
Go
Derek
ahead.
for you.
Go ahead, John.
Derek, just educate me. I probably should know this, but with the transportation plan, can we put forth a plan for the transportation across the water through either public or private steamship or highline? Does that necessarily count and fall into that category in the tip?
It's hard to say without knowing what the project is that you're suggesting.
Well, I'm trying to get a question to a question. My second part of the question would be, if it does apply towards that, and we did, have funds to use or programs that we are in need of, can we partner with somebody like Hyannis that may have exhausted all their funds, and yet they have a person that has the ability to file, and through a partnership with them, maybe get some funds dedicated for, where we're missing right now?
So typically projects that happen within 2 regions or multiple regions are programmed with statewide funding dollars, like an interstate resurfacing project that might go across the Commonwealth, for example. So I think what you're suggesting is it could be a great candidate for a project, and you may even be able to use some of your regional target funds for it, but it would more likely be a project that leverages statewide funding dollars. The intent of the regional target funds are to be spent in your region. Now, if there was, say NRTA and Steamship Authority entered some sort of arrangement where they share a transit facility, and you wanted to have some sort of transit improvement that NRTA could be the pass-through for the funds of, and then your local Department of Public Works could actually be the builder of the project if NRTA doesn't want to do that project, because I know a lot of RTAs don't do construction. You can do something called flex to FTA or flex to transit, where your highway target, say you have a $300,000 transit project you want to do on top of the $644,000 for 2022. You can flex $300,000 highway dollars to transit for NRTA to use for an approvable transit capital project. Not operations, but capital. They need to replace a bus, if they have a shelter, like a bus shelter program that they want to implement. There's options. The ferries are kind of a different ballgame because they're not an RTA.
Mm-hmm. Well, they could be, because they are kind of our regional transportation. So when you get from the boat to the island, and then for parking purposes to coordinate and get a program with the Wave, for example, to have a shuttle. And we've talked about this in years past, how we can possibly get that shuttle operating on a more continual, a more frequent, let's say, pick up at the boat, bring over to public parking out of town, position yourself. That might fall under that category to apply when you're using the boat as a transportation origin.
It may, it really depends on the project. And that's why, again, I encourage the region, if you do have project ideas, that you communicate with the MassDOT District 5 office on developing any project ideas you have, and them working with us at headquarters to determine whether or not it's something that's programmable in any year of your tip. And if it doesn't land on the 22 to 26 tip, but you think you could have something ready for the year 2024 next year, then you could do it on a future tip and then program it at that point. But if it's just in its infancy now, the more likely outcome is that you may not have any projects ready to program this year. But it's always good for the region to think about what, if anything, you'd like to get built on the island. I know this was a challenge a year ago when Mike had just left around now. So just dropping those little seeds in case a plant forms.
Mr.
Go ahead,
Chair,
Judith. I
I'm
see you.
sorry, Maureen was before me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Maureen.
Thank you. Through the chair, Derek, it sounds like you are asking a very important question that we should really sit down and figure out what it is we want done. And is there any way to get those projects done, depending on, what we call it or who's involved. I mean, I know the ferry is always an issue because it's this quasi state federal. It's got all kinds of strange layers to it. So that makes it more hard to fit in. What we're trying to fit in is to get the right peg in the right hole here. And that's clearly, we didn't get that done last year. And so we lost $500,000. I'm still having trouble wrapping my head around that. But there are, I'm aware of, because of other committees I'm on, there are several bridge projects, for example, that have been partly funded. They're kind of moving along, and I would think a bridge repair, reconstruction. I mean, there's a bridge in Pulpus, there's two in Nantucket, right off the top of my head, that all need help. So if we can be specific, here's what we need, here's what we've done so far, and then we go to the region and say, here's what we need, and here's what we've done, and what pegs do you have? We have these holes in our structure, and do you guys have any pegs that will fit into them? Is that essentially what you're saying? To me, it sounds like. I just want to be sure I understood right.
Yep. Yes. So I think the bridges are a good example of something you can talk with the District 5 office about. They can also tell you whether a transportation project you have in mind is federal aid eligible. This is federal money, and there are requirements of how it can be spent. And one place I would encourage members of the commission to go is to the long-range transportation plan that you approved a little less than 2 years ago. The long-range transportation plan, I believe, has a universe of projects, a list of project ideas that have been discussed but unfunded. And that's a solid starting point for you to look to see, like, do you still feel that these are priorities or not? One reckoning that everyone in the world has had about their transportation infrastructure is, after this pandemic, do we really want to do these types of projects, or are there ways that people are using our community differently, and thus we need to reconsider the types of transportation projects we have moving forward? Probably not as big a concern on Nantucket because the island's all you got. But you should certainly look at that plan.
Yeah.
She doesn't mean a bridge to Hyannis. She means it's a different bridge. Judith, go ahead.
Also for the Massasoit Bridge to be useful. But that's, I'm not quite finished. I'm sorry, Judith.
Oh, sorry, Judith.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
So, because I know I have seen these projects on various other lists, and I'm sure that's one of the lists. There's also the DPW has their own.
Yeah,
And so
that's-
I see Holly nodding a lot there. So I think we need to, before our next meeting, maybe there's some way for, I'm not sure what's best to do, Nat, but is there some way
Yes.
for us to, each of us, just put forward what we're aware of and then see how we can put it together in a coherent package to go to the region. So I just don't want us to lose
Yeah,
any opportunity. That's all.
I know, we all feel that way, and this is, Derek is opening up all sorts of different questions here with this, which I understand, and I feel the same way. I mean, we have projects that have been on the, not necessarily ready to go, but in conceptual form forever. We got Sparks Ave, we've got, I mean, forget the roundabouts, that's the voters for the most part, although depending on which one you're talking about, but sidewalks, we have things on the capital programs list that are, this is where DPW kind of plugs into this group sort of in certain things, depending upon their readiness, depending upon what they cost and the engineering and all of that. Like it's difficult. Like I don't understand it. I've never, I don't think any of us do completely. It is very difficult to follow all the rules and stuff. I do think John's point about the steamship, I was actually asked about that by one of the steamship people. From what I heard, Derek, and this could be wrong, but I could get you in touch with the guy that you could ask him questions and he could ask you questions. I believe that the project has to be at our terminal. Like, it can't be like the Eagle needs something, not just because the Eagle comes to Nantucket. I think it has to be something ready on Nantucket at our terminal, but I could be wrong, but I believe that was the point he was making to me last year. He asked me about it. If, they did it, I think they did it in Woods Hole, or they did it in, I don't know. I'm not sure if it was on the Vineyard or here, but I think they used some tip money for something at the steamship. It's one of the other ports. Not 100% sure, but I think so. It could have been a bus. It could have been a bus thing too. Very possible, Derek.
So just think regional tip target funds you try to spend in your region. So if the terminal is what's in your region, then that would make sense based on what he's saying. I don't know what the project is, unfortunately, so it's hard to say if it was even eligible, but if components of a project at the terminal that are transportation focused or intermodal in nature and something that the district can work with the island to make come to fruition, that could yield a potential project.
I think what Maureen is saying, what Fritz is saying, is using the money here for even no matter what it is as long as it benefits the public, regardless of where it is. If it's something that we can do, that's important. And I think that's one of the reasons. Again, back to with Rob McNeil and Mike will work together on some of these things. It depends on what project is ready the most and the price and this and that. So when he's not on here tonight to answer any questions, so we're sort of dabbing at it, and sorry about that. So Judith, did you have something?
Yes, I'm sorry, I'll try to be brief. Derek, we've had a lot of work being done on resiliency and climate change here. Fritz is a rep here, Maureen's involved in the Concom. We lost a road. I know Christy's very familiar with the Sheep Pond Road out at Nantucket, and they're having to find new access points for that. And there's other places like near the Folger Marsh, near the Life Saving Museum, that there's really risk. You can tell Holly's nodding on that. It's low lying and really susceptible to climate impact and storm surges. So I wondered, is it possible to have a list of things either that have already happened? This relates some to the bridges Maureen's mentioning, but or things that might happen, like to build up the area near the Life Saving Museum, that piece of road which would cut off
Right.
significantly, or the Pulpus Road area. Does it have to be something, but it doesn't have to be a state road, right? As long as it's something that's a priority here.
So it's two things I'm going to say. One is that I know from the development of your long-range transportation plan how important resiliency and climate change adaptation concerns are for the island. And even in the out years of that long-range plan, you spelled out how you want to program target funds in the future. And I believe a large portion of that was with the goal of projects to boost resiliency and defend the island with climate change. That means nothing if no projects come of it. So obviously this is the recurring theme of this is the opportunity each year to see if there is a project that you can work toward to address that future goal. What those projects are and whether or not those particular projects are federal aid eligible will really boil down to what the project is and not just where. And if you have ideas in mind for, you know, culvert installation or I honestly don't know. I failed engineering. Planner, not engineer. But consult the engineers to find out what projects would boost resiliency for the island, because it's heard loud and clear at the state level, and it's a top priority of ours as well to see projects like that happen. The district will be your ally in determining what of the projects you present them could come to fruition, leveraging the federal dollars.
That's very helpful. I was just trying to gauge what the priority setting is, because we know you can't fund everything. But
I'm going to go
to know that's in the ballpark potentially. Thank you.
I'm going to share my screen again,
Okay.
just because I have your long range transportation plan, and you can continue talking, but I want to find it for you.
And just to everyone, Leslie's on, I think, now too. She can hear us, listening to us.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question of Derek?
Sure, go ahead, Holly.
So Derek, not only am I a preservation planner for NPDC in the town, but I'm also the hazard mitigation plan coordinator. And we have with our updated HMP some priorities about fixing some of these culverts, roadways along both Nantucket and Pulpus that have been identified in the original HMP in 2007 and then carried over in the 2019 one. And as a planner, I know if you have something in a plan, then obviously you can achieve funding for it. I'm just curious if the fact that we are our own planning authority, if having it, even though it's outlined in one one plan that's federally done, if that would be beneficial, especially if it's outlined obviously in the updated transportation plan.
Yes. So this is why it's important to update your regional plans on a continuing basis. This is a 3C item on your agenda. One of the C's is continuing, which is why we update these every 5 years, 4 or 5 years. And it's so that when the opportunity presents itself to leverage federal funds for a project, you have something defensible saying this is a long time priority for our community to build here. So here, for example, is like roadway and bridge improvements that were spelled out in your plan. And the financial plan, this spells out the funding that you'll receive over time. And this is how the region said it wants to spend it. So it's basically a 1/3 split for complete streets projects, intersection projects, and then bicycle and pedestrian projects. But it was spelled out in your plan. You had a section on impacts of climate change, which is more than most communities would have. And that's a big component of how you score projects in the first place. So if you haven't looked at the long range plan for a while, it's worth, I haven't admittedly for your region, but it's a good resource to turn to figure out what projects you may be interested
Well,
in pushing forward.
If Rob was here right now, I can guarantee you that the one that's the closest that I'm looking at there is the Francis Washington intersection. I know that's, I don't want to say ready to go, but Christie might be able to update me. I'm pretty sure that project has been accepted and is, whatever, like on the books to be done, I believe in the fall. I could be off a little bit, but I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. See, Rob's not here. He's away. I actually emailed him today and I got the little thing that sends you back, whatever. So I know he's not around. So that could be something. Maybe we can continue that for the next meeting and maybe we can find that out. And also the stuff about what Maureen's talking about, I believe isn't that bridge project, the repairs sort of, isn't there a plan for that? Weren't there engineers here in a big meeting out there, Melissa, Maureen? I
Yes,
thought there was.
no, there was, but now we're the DPW, that piece of it, if you will, that engineering part is, as far as I'm aware, is on the DPW list. And, but in terms of, funding is always the issue, obviously. So,
Right, yeah.
so that they came out and looked at and started on, starting the process for both the Massasoit Bridge and the Ames Avenue Bridge. And now we have a new old problem, the Sheep Pond Road access. So just Nantucket has, three little, where I happen to live, has three things that are all, kind of yelling about, needing money, and some plans have been done. So I just think it's a matter of just pulling together what we have. And I'm just trying to figure out, Holly, I know Holly has a lot of, well, you've got the MVP, God love you, as well as your general work in the plus department. So I think I'm just trying to think how we can best get something put together. And I guess
Maybe we can.
Happy,
Go ahead.
I'm happy to volunteer to see, because I know I've seen things. I'm sure there's somewhere on my computer if I dig around a little bit, and then maybe see what I can find and get it around to people. And if anybody, or we send it to Holly. I mean, given people aren't around, I'm not trying to. I want this. I guess I'm worried about this just getting. We have a lot to do, and trying to organize all of these different groups who are looking at, in some cases, the exact same problem. And maybe there's a way here that we might be able to fund some of it that we hadn't, really recognized was available.
I think that to add to what you're saying is the most ready project, Rob's gonna know. I mean, he knows what's going on with the stuff the most, as far as, these projects, Derek, that we're sort of throwing around the room here. But I think, Maureen, what we should do is get in touch with Rob. Maybe Billy or Holly can email him, ask him some of these questions. Derek, maybe you can help with that. I don't know, because he knows what ones are the closest to being able to fit the tip criteria.
Mhm.
Of being able to access that funding. That's the catch. It's got to make this way it works come together. And if it's not ready, it's not ready regardless. So, but I mean, I like that idea. I think that Massasoit Bridge is definitely the most important one because of the weight issues going out there. That's a problem. And I don't know what's going on with Millie's Bridge, but I think, but anyway. Go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, just the timeline for this group to know moving forward. March will be, at your March meeting will be an excellent opportunity for you to discuss those projects. If I want to make sure that District 5 is able to participate in the call as well. And if there's any other stakeholders from the community that you think should be present, like all commission meetings, it's public. So the public's encouraged to participate. Come April, the projects from that will need to be reflected in the draft tip. If it turns out that there are no projects ready to program in your 22 to 26 tip, that's okay. It's still important for the region to have these conversations about projects that you'd like to work toward, and to keep that conversation going with the Highway District Office, with MassDOT headquarters, and obviously your planning office. And then May will be the time that we need the draft tip to be endorsed for all regions of the Commonwealth per federal guidelines. And month of May is when we're also going to be releasing the draft UPWP, the Unified Planning Works Program, which is the funding to pay transportation staff working on 3C planning.
Yeah. And next month I think we'll be talking about some of that stuff, the plan area and so forth. So, well, thanks, Derek. Appreciate that. Is that, Maureen, are you satisfied with those answers? I mean, I think Rob, between Rob and what little we have to go on, I think that he's going to be able to be the key person to plug in something that's pluggable.
Right,
That can fit this,
I am sure that I know Rob will be very key, and because the Concom, we wind up having, bridge issues become, and culverts become Concom issues because, and so I've run into this more than I would have, typically I would have thought I would have. And I think the important thing for us is to really understand what Derek's people, if you will, just very broadly, not you, but what exactly is necessary for something to get funding? I mean, do you have to have the engineering drawings? Do you have to have, what exactly is necessary? And then what do we have? And Rob will have a great deal of that. Not all, but some of it may be lurking in other places. And so I just want to make sure we don't miss anything, because I'm just concerned that, given that we, I guess, missed stuff this last year, there's a lot of things to do on this island, and $500,000 can go, quite a bit. So I think this is great. I'm so glad that we had this today. It's very, very useful, and thank you.
Yeah, and again, and I know that it looks like with, 500,000 goes out the window and we lose it. Again, we've ran into such an issue in the last year with COVID and Mike and some confusion, and we are working on another planner. They've found someone, but we'll be talking about that at the next meeting. It's not a done deal, but it's very positive. But the guy might be just the right person for us if this can all work. So everybody wants someone, everybody wants this to all work, and nobody more than me, I can tell you that, because it's quite a void, and it's the most complicated position we have. Derek, I don't even know how you do it. Like, what a mess this stuff is. Like, it's like being a brain surgeon. I mean, it is, and you have to know how to navigate all this. As Jack's been around a long time, you want that money, you got to play by the rules, and they're complicated. So we certainly appreciate the input, Maureen, view on that bridge issue, because that's easy to forget that. So yes, Fritz, go ahead.
I don't want to prolong this too much, but it seems to me that whether we get it done this year or not, there is a short time span, and I'm glad that Derek pointed out. I mean, we've been through it, but that's the first time I've actually heard the months and what has
months.
Yeah,
right, I agree.
And we don't have a dedicated staff person to the transportation type issues, but I guess, now I'd look to you as the chair. Is there some way that in the interim, we could have a smaller group that could be kind of the point people to meet, talk about this, meet with Rob, meet, whatever,
Yeah.
staff, whatever,
Yeah,
without, and again, but without it running into millions, I mean, not millions, but without running into, everything's got to be a public meeting and we got it.
right. Yeah, I hear you.
I
No,
don't
that's a
know.
good point.
Can two people on this committee be designated to kind of, if they're willing or volunteer to see what they
Yes.
can do to meet with staff and figure out what can be done?
Yeah, no, I think that, yeah, I understand what you're saying. You're talking about, like, hashing out the list of projects, figuring out which one fits this, timing, the money part, what's on capital, what's been approved, what hasn't. There's a whole bunch of pieces. The 500,000, I just throw in 500,000, but like, that get taking something off of the capital plan for the town and using it with state money makes a lot of people smile. I can tell you that. It's just getting it to fit this criteria. So I think that's, again, where Rob comes in, understands it the most, and working with Billy and staff and figuring this out. So that's a good point. And I think that Billy's got that in his hat there, or in his mask, or in his gator, or whatever he's got. So figure this out, because I agree with you, Fritz. I mean, this is frustrating, and everybody has a different feeling of frustration right now. And I don't really know what the answer is, except that it's not for lack of trying. So I think Rob's the key person, without question, because Rob and him have been working, Andrew and Rob have been working on a lot of different projects, and they may know something that we don't even know right now, that they have planned for something that I don't even know about. So go ahead, John.
Just last question. Sorry, I'm taking so much of your time, Derek. Trying to be creative with funds and allocations and things like that, and I'm just trying to find out what falls under what category. But I know, obviously, housing on the island is a continual problem. Is there a way to dedicate any of the funds in the future towards maybe a transportation planner? Maybe a hub, an office, or something like that. And in doing so, we allocate certain funds for, maybe there's an apartment above the transportation office, that somehow be creative to use funds. It is directly used for transportation. It just happens to be for our regional, meaning our island building, something like that. That we can help, because one of the things was housing, cost of living, to get a full-time person for that position. So is that a possibility?
I admire the creative navigation. My mind works the same way, which frustrates a lot of people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the answer is no.
Okay.
It needs to be spent on transportation projects, and it can't be commingled with something non-transportation related.
Good try. Thank you.
But to Nat's point, if leveraging these funds meant that city funds became available, CIP funds, or whatever other means you were going to spend on transportation work on island become available, then using this money for transportation could free up island money that could help address your affordable housing concerns. Hopefully.
Yeah. Okay, so back to the actual item, the safe routes to school update. Is this something that we need action on? And is there anything else you have to explain, Derek, or what?
No, I was just I think it was written as the Safe Routes to School update because the Safe Routes to School project at Nantucket Middle and High School Complex is currently a TIP funded project that that the island has. It's using state funds, and it's about $1 million, but it's on target to be advertised, I think, in FY23, when it was anticipated to be advertised in the first place. So just an update that that's still on track, and that continues to be the recommended project for your 22 to 26 tip.
And that was a whole variety of improvements along Surfside Road.
I'm
by
not
the
working
intersection.
specifically on the project, but I think it's like crosswalk improvements,
Yeah.
sidewalk facilities.
Yeah. There's some sightline issues. There was a bunch of different things. Okay, so is that it? Do we not have anything else that we need to vote on, Derek?
Not for me. That was that.
Okay.
Safety
I thought there
performance
was-
targets was the
I
big
thought there
one.
was one more actual vote that you needed. Okay, very good. All right, I guess that's it then. So does there anyone else have any questions or other business comments, et cetera? Fritz, go ahead.
Yeah, just a question regarding the revisions to the master plan, town's master plan. I know, can you and unfortunately Andrew's not here, but do you know what our plan is for the revisions to the master plan?
Well, Judith and I have been working back and forth with Andrew and Civic League people and some other stuff. Judith might be able to plug in a little bit more information. Are you talking about each area update, improve, not improvement, but a rewrite, or are you talking about just in general?
No, I mean, the overall rewrite.
Yeah, like what the plan.
It's a 5-year document. We started very early and made some very minor things. Since then, coastal resilience has obviously become a big issue. I presume, and we have, I will call it, as my recollection of the master plan, there are kind of token places in there that talks about resilience, but it seems to me with the money that we're spending and with what we're doing on the coastal resilience advisory committee and the consultant, that by the end of the year we're gonna have a fairly significant number of things to be talking about, and it seems to me that kind of all should be going or into the revisions to the town master plan. So I don't know whether that we wait until the end of the year. Looks like Judith is, but anyway.
I think Fritz, though, with the 9 elements, I think that the issue of resiliency without question can be added in to the, rewrites of the ones that are part of it the most, whether it's Nantucket, whether it's Wisconsin, it doesn't, it doesn't matter. I don't see why that can't happen. But I think the main focus, Judith, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we want to heat your food up? We want to get the town, what we're calling it, I call it the ROH district master plan, but whatever we're going to call it, the in-town master plan, because they don't have one. And the route has been identified. There's been some work on that. And I think that was the, sort of got most of the energy at the beginning of this. But Nantucket the new people that have want to be part of that have been sort of identified, haven't been accepted yet by us, but they are definitely, doing some work behind the scenes as well. So Judith, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, Fritz, I agree with you. It's been frustrating. I feel like we've been trying to push wet noodles on the pandemic. I think has really made it a lot harder on Plus to be able to manage all the things that they have going because they've had shutdowns for health reasons and other things. I think the transportation planner loss has been significant because it's pulled a lot of Andrew's time away, and also the budget was cut. But here, definitely, I promise you, I've raised with Andrew repeatedly, and I have every reason to believe he really agrees that the resiliency issues have to be addressed as part of the master plan. And I'm very grateful that CREC has the capacity to keep moving forward. And I think that once you have topical recommendations and things like that, that will fit seamlessly into the master plan. He's been working, trying to work to get basic data together. There's still the census data missing, of course, but they've tried to work with, I think it's Wesson and Sampson that has done work about the extension of sewer lines, and to identify additional data that's needed to do what is really a more of a build-out analysis to understand where the topographic constraints are and things of that sort, so that there's a better kind of baseline data available, and have had discussions with the land council that it's hoping to contribute to that. They've also peeled off separate parts of the master plan. The state statute has, I believe, 9 or possibly 10 elements. So, for example, they've got a contract out, someone working on open space portion of that to contribute to the ultimate document. So there's little pieces of this moving forward, but I think the last time that Nat and I met with Andrew to talk about this, we raised the same kind of question, that we really do need a full briefing for the board and a really considered plan of action about what's going to be happening. I personally feel like I've gone before the Civic League multiple times to try to keep them briefed, but everything that we hope to move forward with, we've had to hold back on. The points about the small area planning that Nat was making, my understanding is that they were working first cut, and they're going to go back and do several rounds of these, but Wisconsin and Nantucket, because those had fully fledged prior small area plans, priority to the downtown. It took some work to draw the line about where that
Yep.
area would be designated, because Brand Point had views on that. Lily Pond area had interest in that.
Pilgrim, and up on
So that-
Pilgrim Cliff.
Resolved now.
Yeah.
You and I had offered to do work on review of the Surfside plan, I think, and Andrew said he'd be prepared to meet about that. He's had some family things going on that meant, and some health, some issues that he had to deal with. So we haven't been able to bring that to closure, but I can promise you that we bring that up repeatedly, and I think he really would like to move ahead. We, in fact, Nat and I met with Don and Don Holgate and Libby Gibson, what was that, 2 weeks ago, Nat, to talk about the imperative to provide the needed funding and staffing to and raised again the question this group had raised before in terms of having better capacity for responding to public questions, because I think, frankly, a good deal of Andrew's
Lost, did you, or lost, I'm not sure.
Frozen.
There we go.
Andrew
Oh.
staff, that we have to just keep insisting on raising those issues if we want to get anything done. But I'm sorry it's not a better report than that, but I do think that the desire is there. It's just the resources and the time hasn't been there.
Yeah, and also too, Fritz, you asked before about open meeting and this and that. So when we did the master plan before, the parts that I was involved with were towards later, 08, 09, 07, 08. There was no you know, we weren't taking minutes. We just met at people's houses and, you know, and that was it. It was easy. And now it's complicated. So it's going to be that much more difficult, staff oriented than it was in the past. Or somebody's going to have to be a secretary doing it officially and hopefully not on Zoom. That's another issue. I mean, that I just can't see that working for this, particularly once we get into the meat and potatoes. But I do want to just say though that back on the in-town one, Judith brought that back up. To me, that was like a huge hurdle to get that sort of set up, and those people, they all know who they are, and they're good people. Lisa Apostine is involved as well with some of that, and that's going to be a good thing to have, because some of the stuff that we see at planning board, like the other night on Cliff Road, this is where we get into what's the town, what's residential, what's grandfather, what's pre-55, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of things, noise. These issues never go away, and this is a good time to sort of talk about that. But on the other hand, Fritz, stuff you're bringing up is all valid, and I don't think that there's any of that is going to be overlooked. So the whole resiliency issue and what the solutions really are versus what they're not, I think that's all going to get brought up during these, once these meetings start and stuff. So that's it, Derek. It's always a dragged on meeting, isn't it? And there's nothing you can do. You got to talk. We don't meet that often, Derek. So we have to chat about things.
I'm in such a routine. I'll take the break.
This is supposed to be 20 minutes. That has never happened that I know of. So, is that okay, Fritz? I mean, it's not like nothing's happening, but it definitely is complicated and not and certainly in full swing. The other issue is Tom Nevis. There isn't anyone been identified yet, although there was one guy that sort of was, and then I don't know what happened to him, but they have to get replacing Dual McIntyre is not going to happen. So they're going to have to find somebody that could even try to be Dual McIntyre. And that's not going to be that easy for them. And so that's another little slowdown. Sconset, Judith, I see you just hanging there with me for a second.
Yep.
I had a blip there in my own mind. I just thought of something else. There's a lot of stuff going on with Sconset that Andrew's been working with people out there with little zoning things. And there's some stuff at traffic safety that's going on that I'm aware of. And I weighed in on several intersections. I used to work out there for years, and I drive out there every day at least twice. So I know what's going on in Sconset as far as anything they need to do for road stuff. But what's good is that group that's working on took all that time that they took to put these little improvements together, a sort of the new people coming back for their rewrite of the master plan. So it's good. It's almost as if the people that worked on this 12 years ago, they're not all here. There's new people, and that's good that some of this other stuff isn't, even though it's not related to the master plan directly, it's getting them involved in that, and they're sort of a good, starting point for them. So Andrew's got a really good relationship with them. So there's some work being done that isn't directly related to the each plan, but it will have a positive effect on it. So go ahead, Judith. Sorry, I just thought about the Wisconsin thing.
I'm sorry, Nat. Just one thing to ask the group is another issue I've talked with Andrew about is the importance of having diverse representation on these working groups.
Yeah.
And that means not necessarily only people who are owners of property or people who are here in the summer or winter or whatever, but to try to really be sensitive to the range of people in the community. So I've asked him and had suggested I think a draft about how you might go about soliciting volunteers to be involved in some of this work. So I would ask if any of you, I know you're on other commissions and boards and community groups and things, but if there are people you think would be good contributors to that kind of undertaking to really be sure we get a full range of community insight, that would really be helpful to know. We'll be doing it some point as it gets further along, and it feels like we're in quicksand sometimes, but we'll be doing some kinds of survey work that I hope will capture insights from a whole variety of people, but we really need people at the table, and that isn't easy. I think because many people are working multiple jobs, have kids, the pandemic, everything else. So if there are people, particularly to some areas, for example, I really stressed to Andrew that I thought they needed to be working on the harbor master plan before they got so far along with Harbor Place that they really didn't know the context in which that would take place. And I'll talk to Jeff Carlson about that as well. So there's a lot of different planning things going on and opportunities for people. And I just feel like we need to really be able to contact the community more fully and not only the usual people. So last thing to say, thank you.
Thank you, Judith, for that. Appreciate it. Anything that you forget, I'll remember, and vice versa. I can't remember it all. So does anyone else have anything to add to this discussion? Next meeting, there's going to be a lot. So I'm hoping that we can maybe, I don't know if this will work, but try to move the time to be maybe at 5. I don't know. We'll see if we can do that. I'm not sure if we can.
Yeah.
Yes, Chris.
And sometime in advance of when the agenda goes out, would it be possible just to send out some sort of a short memo on what a lot consists of?
Oh,
Just so we're
well,
prepared.
I mean, the reason I keep saying that is because we've canceled, and then this meeting technically was like almost canceled, and then this stuff with Derek popped up, and there was some conflicts. Like, see, Christy just got off. There's a thing tonight at 7 o'clock that she wanted to be involved in. So, and then vacation. So this is why we're here. But when I keep saying the 15th, it's because there's more stuff, going to be on there, from these last 2 meetings, from this one and the one in January. So, okay. And there will be some, and we're not sure about what's going to happen with the solar thing, but hopefully we do have there may be some action coming up for this transportation guide. So hopefully we'll have Leslie and Andrew will have a sort of a little bit of a presentation. I don't know everything about it, but I know enough that they're very, very positive about this. It's just a lot of hurdles. So as you can imagine, you don't just move to Nantucket and say, here I am. So
just a last thing in terms of the tip. I'm happy to do whatever I can do to help move that along. Project. I know Maureen indicated an interest, so I'll just leave it to you and Holly's here. I know Eleanor's not here and Andrew's not here, but so I'll just leave it with kind of that small group of people that if there's anything we can do or I can do to help facilitate, I'm happy to do it.
Yep. And I think that maybe Holly and Billy can reach out to Rob and just general question to him. I know he's not here, but he'll know exactly what we're talking about.
Okay.
Is that okay, Holly and Billy? Is that good? Thanks. Thank you. Judith,
you guys,
go ahead, Judith.
I just wanted to respond to Fritz. One of the things is we agreed that there were 4 town meeting articles that we were
Or
going to
for
review
us,
because
yes.
they were matters of planning
Planning
concern.
concern, commission concern,
And
yeah.
one of those is the short-term rental provision that has gotten a good deal of commentary among the public. And Eleanor put in the meeting announcement that the FinCom is going to be reviewing that on March the 4th. So I know some of us wanted to have the benefit of their discussion before we had a discussion. The other items, some of them were taken up. I think, well, I think I remember the date. It was the date we had the special planning board meeting, which was, I think, the 18th, that conflicted with their meeting. But I think some of the other ones that were
Yes.
planning concern were on that day too. So I think that if people have the chance to review in advance, that's probably a helpful thing to do, because it'll inform and kind of ensure that we're all starting in the same place.
Right, and you're talking about the agenda when they're meeting for our stuff, right?
No, for things that we said NPDC would discuss, there also is a meeting, I think it's the 15th, I'm not sure, of March, for planning board items. So I've got to attend that.
Oh, okay. Let's sort
Anybody
that out then.
attend that, but I think that's part of why it's likely to be a lengthy meeting along with everything else.
Yeah. Okay, and everybody got, Judith, that link that she sent made sense, right?
Yep.
The connection, okay, good.
They
right.
had a prior discussion where they had testimony from, I believe, from Julia Linder. This is their decision meeting. So I've got bookmarks somewhere. I haven't had a chance to go back, but their earlier conversation with Julia, if that's of interest to anybody, we should dig that out for you too.
Okay. Does everybody know what Judith's talking about? FinCom meetings, okay. So are we good, everyone? Holly, that's a beautiful picture back there, Holly. What year is that? Like, that should be like around 1810?
1880s, it's bird's eye view.
Ah, okay. Boy, there was a lot of people in a small place at that time. Oh, no Eagle, no Wi-Fi. All right, so is everything, Judith, do you have anything else? Are you okay?
Yeah, no, I
Okay,
just was trying to
you're
fill out
sitting,
what
you're
you
sitting
said.
a little lower, you're sitting a little lower, so I didn't see your hand a couple times. I
No, I'm
apologize for
sorry.
that.
I did too many Zoom meetings today. I lost track of how many hours.
All right. Fritz, you good?
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Fritz McClure,
Aye.
Judith Wagner,
Aye.
John Trudell,
Aye.
Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Maureen Phillip,
Aye.
Wendy Hudson,
Aye.
Leslie Johnson. I think she's there somewhere. She was. Oh, well, okay. Jack Gardner. Where'd he go? He might have gone off. He might be muted.
He's friend.
I'm saying aye for him. He just had to go in the
Oh,
other room.
that's okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for helping, Jack. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's wonderful. And chair votes aye. Thank you all so much for coming. Billy, thank you. Holly, Derek.
Derek, yay, Derek.
Get the pizzas, get
Good job,
delivered.
Derek.
Thank you.
Got a lot
Yeah,
done.
thank
We
you.
got a lot done. We got a lot done in 30 minutes.
20.
Exactly.
Bye.
Bye.
Night, everyone.
Bye.